Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Projector Stories podcast. I'm Sarah, a 1-3 emotional projector.
I'm Laura, a 5-1 splenic projector.
And in this podcast, we basically just are telling stories about what it is that we go through as projectors who are deconditioning, alive and in living color, about what it is that we're going through, what it feels like, what it smells like, what it tastes like, all of the sensory input types of things, and then also just happenings that we're experiencing week by week. So, Laura, is there anything that has happened to you this week that you want to touch on?
It's funny. You always ask it that when, things don't happen to me. I don't have a third line body. I'm sheltered. But there is one little thing. If not a lot happens to me, like I said, but there is one little thing. So I went to a Galentine's breakfast yesterday. And you've previously said, Sarah, I can't remember who it was to me or on pod, but you have a baby network. Like you attract a lot of people who have children. And so you are reading the charts for the children so the parents can help raise their children properly. Anyways, I went to like a mother's Galentine's thing, and it was with a bunch of mothers and their babies. And it was interesting to watch auras play out. Well, like knowing my own aura and not knowing anyone else's aura, and just watch the interactions that the babies had with me, because with babies, like they can't talk, they can't do anything. So it's just watching them unfold in their own little energy bodies and watching what happens, and like noticing when they make eye contact, when they want my attention, when they want someone else's attention, and being aware of my own pointy aura and realizing when I'm poking into someone's child unwanted, and how that might not be pleasant for them, or like when I pull out of that child's aura, how like they're like, whoa, where'd that energy go? Or where did that attention go? I want that attention back. Please give it back to me. And then they throw a little fit about it. So it was just interesting to watch. Nothing really much other than that. How about you?
I love that because it's like babies are such pure energy, like they have not gotten conditioned, so you can really see them reacting to like what's correct for them versus what's not correct for them in real time. And it's funny because like in a sense, well, first of all, I have a baby network in the sense that I know a lot of people with babies. I have not gotten to the point where I've been invited to read everybody's baby's charts. Although if I posted something on Instagram that said like I'm doing babies like charts, um, I guarantee you I would get like at least 10 people that, wanted to hop on board and do it with their kid. Because it's interesting, like women, generally speaking, it's not like human design like human design is for all women, but when they have children, it seems like they become far more intrigued by it, because they want to understand how to handle their kid. They feel a lot more, I think, helpless and out of control, because you can read all of the baby books in the world, but like each baby is unique and differentiated, as we know, coming from the human design lens. And so each baby's going to have its own way of doing things. And so you can feel really helpless, I think, as a mom when you don't know why your baby is doing things differently than other babies. But just to say, too, about the pointy projector aura, something I realized this week, partially to do with my own not self, but then also just partially to do with other people. I'm on TikTok and I post a lot of stuff about projectors, and I've gotten like somewhat of like following, nothing crazy, but a decent amount of people, and some of them are projectors, and mainly projectors who have just discovered their projectors. And I realized the danger in like making human design seem like something that it isn't, which is not to say that it's not, but like I think we've all who've gotten deeply into human design have gone through the experience of being like, oh, like I came to it for this reason, right? Like I was saying offline, my not self came to it for this reason, and then I got sucked into it, and now I don't know where the fuck I am. Like How did I get here? Why am I learning all of this? And what does it mean about the fabric of reality, right? And so it's like when you get into human design and you find out you're a projector, first of all, mostly projectors have been living with a lot of bitterness. I shared this with Laura too offline. It's like as you're deconditioning, I think a lot of bitterness comes up to be like felt and like worked out or pushed out, or I don't know the right phraseology for it, but I feel a lot of my old bitterness that I have from not living my life correctly, more acutely, and not self projectors in the beginning. And this is also just to speak of people who have large splits versus people who have small splits. Those of us with small splits tend to be self blaming when it comes to where we're bridged. We tend to blame things on ourselves, whereas people who have larger splits tend to blame things on other people. And so I say all of this to just introduce the idea of like projectors who have large splits, who are coming into human design, can take human design and use it as a way of feeling superior, right? That large split's like everybody else is fucked up and wrong, and I'm right, and I've always been right. And like instead of the bitterness being turned in on the self, it's like pushed out towards others. And something that I'm very aware of, I've been in this experiment since 2019, but like more truly deconditioning without anyone else's aura, sleeping with anybody else's aura since 2021. And it's like the vanity that I have had the entire time that I was deconditioning is so profound. Like at every step, I thought I knew better, and I don't. Like at every step I'm like being forced to see how much I don't know better, and me always thinking, well, I can keep living my life the way that I want to live it. And then at every step seeing when I try and bypass my own body's authority, how my life just gets fucking smashed up into my face. And it's like I've had to go through all of that to kind of get to the point where I feel the way that I feel about human design, and I have kind of at least some level of humility about it. And I ended up I've blocked people on TikTok. I'm a 1-3. Like, I'm not here to be a role model for anyone. Like, if I don't like you, if the vibes are off, like, I'm not dealing with you. But one of the people that followed me, um, basically I just got the vibes were off kind of thing, and I could sense that they like took the information, got on their high horse with it, like I'm a projector, I'm better than everybody else, whatever, big large split. And then started posting all this like ridiculous stuff, like just like totally unself-conscious and like not self-reflective kind of shit. And it just made me realize like, oh, there's a danger here in just like telling people about themselves. I mean, I guess it's not really danger. It's just going to be what it is, right? I can't control what people take from what it is that I'm going to say. But I felt the just ickiness of what projectors can be like, and like what projector auras can be like. And then there was the other experience, which I told Laura about, which was another projector. Actually, both of these projectors had open throats. So I guess the bottom line I'm trying to make here is that just because you're a projector doesn't mean you're a projector, right? Just because you have a projector design does not mean that you're living your life correctly as a projector, or that you have any awareness or can see anything at all. That is a potentiality that, God willing and fractal willing and like all of the things willing, like actually the awareness is reached, and like we are able to have our passenger consciousness within the vehicle being correct. Um, but it's nothing to be proud of if you haven't done the work. It's just the potentiality of it is there, but it isn't it until it's there. Laura, do you want to add anything before I keep talking?
I can add a few things. Contrary to you, I don't have projectors in my network. So I know of one big split projector, and it's funny, like when I brought up bitterness to that person, they were like, I'm not bitter. Everyone else is bitter. So it was just like we automatically put the bitterness blame on everyone else. So I can see your point. But in terms of the vanity, I feel like that's not just applicable to like people thinking that they know human design, and that vanity, but it's so versatile, that sentiment that we have as humans, thinking that we know best and that our experience is valid, and because of that, we have some sort of say over anyone else. I can't think of like the appropriate adjectives to string together into a sentence to convey this sentiment, but yeah, it's that vanity as a human race is it's very intrinsic into who we are, whether we're self or not self. So it's just, yeah, a big talking point, but we don't have to go down the path of vanity.
Well, I mean, it's going to be the type of thing that comes up over and over and over again. Like it's not this is not a one episode conversation. I mean, the vanity of my own mind is something that I could basically talk about in every instance of every experience that I've ever had.
Well, I
So,
was just telling you earlier today how sometimes my mind is arrogant, and I don't necessarily think I'm better than anyone else, but my mind being my head center being defined and closed, it's not open to other people's inspiration, and it doesn't care what other people have to bring to the table that they think is inspiring. My brain is gonna, or like my head center and ajna center are going to um not prioritize, but like give more value to the things that it finds inspiring from within. And on the surface, when I talk to people, like I can see the arrogance. And like again, like I don't think I'm better than you, but just the way my brain talks, like it's weird the vibration that comes out of being one of arrogance. And it's just like, oh, this is icky, but this is what my mind has to say. So I guess it's just gonna come out and it is what it is.
well, and it's also like, there's some quality of, an old sentiment which is like, when is it okay to it's okay to sometimes be a dick. It's okay to be fucking arrogant sometimes, right? Like
Yeah.
it's
It's okay to
fine.
be
Like,
everything and anything under the sun, basically. Is
right. Well,
the
yeah, I
end of the
mean,
day.
human design may be dogmatic in a lot of ways, but it's amoral, which which is an interesting combination to say the least. But um, it's just I have my own arrogance to be sure, but like I think maybe maybe it's my fractal, maybe it's my open undefined G. There's just like an earnestness to me and like my own ability to smell my own bullshit. That I realize, and I didn't realize this forever. I just realized it, that like a lot of people aren't able to see when they're deluding themselves. And it's not to say that I can delude myself, but like eventually I'll figure it out. Eventually I'll figure it out. People can live their whole lives deluding themselves. Um, and again, it's like this is also where I was coming from with the 1-3. Like I realized I was thinking, my mind was thinking, you have this following, you have some responsibility to them, like, you need to be a good messenger. I'm like, fuck that. I don't like this person's energy. Like they can go figure it out on their own. They'll find another place, another fractal, another person. It's not up to me to like basically withstand my body's dislike for certain energies just so that I can say that I'm being fair, and there's some kind of equality in the way that I'm sharing things. Like and I was realizing this about Ra too, because he had a dislike for the 19th gate because he was a hanging 49 in an open emotional center. And so, we have to understand that with Ra, he has the filter of himself, and that's what he has to look at everything with. And he's going to like certain things, like he likes to find egos. He has one. He doesn't mind being an egoist, or he didn't mind being an egoist. And then there's places that he's not going to like defined emotional centers are going to be triggering for him because he may have had his spirit wounded by the conditioning that he got from his own family. And so like we're limited by the perspective of the messenger himself and his own body's physical reactions to things. That doesn't make what he's saying inaccurate, but it's just, it gives you a little bit of space to be able to look at the information less dogmatically too. um, at least that's how I've interpreted it, because like I have my own filter that I see reality through. I think you've talked about this before, Laura, with like the different lenses, like the sepia tones and the black and white, and different ways that our different authorities see reality. And I've just been thinking about how, you know, I have my limitation. I like what I like. I don't like what I don't like. And it's not a moral judgment, or if, you know, it's not, I don't have to be mad at myself for not liking certain things, even if it's not logical. So, so yeah.
Also, you're anarchist. So I feel like anarchists in and of themselves have just like harsh corners to themselves. Like they're not soft and easygoing the way line tunes are. Line line twos are. It sounded weird when I said it. But like even if a line two, no, I'm not saying this is true, but just like they're always, I feel like I've said this before, they're always going to be called out. They're always attracting projections from people of like, oh, you could do this, you could do that, and like a lot of coaxing energy, which might give them the connotation that they're soft and easygoing or like they're open to other people because of their natural projection field. When in reality, like it's like the underlying color beneath two is hope. It's gentle, it's not abrasive. And so, yeah, it's just, I don't know, if you're an anarchist, I feel like you're just intrinsically like F you if someone doesn't fit your energy and like you the realization that you don't have to put up with them if you don't want to. It's
Yeah.
just the anarchist in you.
Well, and it's just like, it's also me realizing like that I'm never really going to be a role model either, in the sense of like having a consistent way of being, because I don't have a lot of six lines. And so, you know, it's, role models aren't just, I don't have a lot of fifth lines for that matter, right? I'm not going to be universalizing things and sharing it with people either. Like I'm limited to my own experience and my own feelings about my own experience, and like something that I'm, I guess, part of what my body is moving towards is being less conditioned or triggered, I guess, by my conditioning from the past. But like Laura was laughing at me because there was someone that reached out to me. Again, projector auras, when they're not invited, are super uncomfortable, everybody, just to say, no matter if you're a projector or not. But somebody reached out to me who had the 2644, and like that's a triggering channel for me. I mean, it's just in my reality, it is what it is. And I would like to move into a place in my reality where I'm less activated by it, or I'm less activated into some kind of not self behavior by it, right? But like for now, this is where I am in my deconditioning process. And something about the deconditioning process, maybe with an emotional center, is like maybe with, like I said to you, Laura, earlier, having my emotional center defined by line twos, which, you know, say what you want about line two and the hope, but like they are the most discerning line. Like they're only going to answer a certain call, you know, if they're being correct. And so they'll still reject a lot of stuff. They just maybe won't do it as anarchically. Is that a word?
It
They
is
don't.
now.
They're not ripping things down like I am. You know, um, it's a different. It is a different vibe, to be sure. But oh God, I don't know where I was just going with that.
I have a tangent, if I may.
Okay, go ahead.
You used the word activated, which, like, if we throw back to our clubhouse days, someone, I think they're like a guest, not one of our regulars, but like brought up the term activated instead of triggered, like to empower yourself by your trauma so that instead of being a victim of your trauma, you say you're activated, that there's like something you can do about it to feel better or to not see your trauma in a negative light. And that's like a really interesting concept within the human design lens because it's a mental masturbation type of thing of just like trying to think your way out of something to make it different than what it is, but it's not inherently wrong. Like, we have our minds. They're great tools. We are Homo sapiens for a reason. We're not mammals. We have minds that are able to self-reflect consciousness, and like they have this tremendous power. And we can use that power to think our way through things, to not be traumatized. And yet, I feel like so there is dogmatic criticism, perhaps by like the hardcore human designists, to say, oh, that's just the not self mind doing things. But in reality, like, again, it's like, how far deep do you want to take yourself into the not self ego center? How much are you going to go into the self-improvement zone? You can use that word, and you can choose to see things differently and to reflect upon a situation that triggers you and to turn it around so you see it in a different light, which is like a very emotional solar plexus thing, to like take 1,000 different pictures of a rose instead of just like seeing a rose and be like, oh, it's a rose. It's looking at all the different sides and angles of something. um, but it it rides the fence of
Yeah.
self versus not self, of like using your mind as a tool. And like, our minds are for other people, so it's an interactive process to do so, to be like, hey, I'm going to use my mind to help you see a situation differently, or you're going to use your mind to help me see a situation differently. And when it's for the other, it's okay. But when it's for yourself, well, I guess the most critical thing is when it's for yourself and you're trying to do something about it, or like use that to make a decision or to change your life actively in some way. If you're going against yourself, your true self, um, then it goes into dangerous territory. But again, just to think about things, like, I'm always thinking about things. I feel like I can easily flip something upside down, and I'm always trying to like be my own devil's advocate. So I don't know. It's hard to draw the line and say like, oh yeah, this is something we should do, or this is something we should strongly avoid. But that just like using the word activated pulled all this out of me. So thank you for that.
Yeah, no, I mean, and this is, I guess, the point I was trying to make with Raw. Like, the man went through an insane encounter that literally changed the chemistry of his physical body forever. And yet he still was left with his own preferences towards, gates, channels, centers, and so there's something to be said about the fact, like, maybe he's just designed to not like that type of energy from the not self homogenized world. And, um, you know, in our moralism, right, in all of this Judeo Christian moralism, it's like, love those who persecute you, and like this, that, and the other thing. And pray for those that you don't like. And it's just like all of this stuff of trying to accept people who are not your cup of tea, for the sake of being equal, or for the sake of being fair, or whatever the case may be. And I guess my thing is, in my own earnestness, it's like, I'm fine with disliking something if it's correct for me, like if that's truly what it is for me. I don't love the idea of my not self disliking something and then, you know basically like never being able to tolerate it. That might be where I'm left, like, how well are we going to be able to heal the scars of our conditioned selves? Like, are they going to heal? Am I ever going to feel neutral about that channel? Um, I don't really care if I do or if I don't, but at the end of the day, I do care if it's correct for me to not be, or to be, if it's correct for me to be neutral about it, then I would, it's part of my deconditioning process then to kind of not be activated so much, um, but not something that I can control ultimately. So it's interesting, like, looking at these things, wondering about them. There's a certain amount of, as a three-line body too, like, I'm just going to bump into life no matter what. Like, I can't avoid that channel, literally. Like, I live with someone with it. um so, there's a question on tolerance and what is the level of tolerance that we're supposed to have towards things that we don't like? Is that there's some correctness to being around things that we don't like, right? Because liking something is not the same thing as things being correct, right?
Yeah.
And that's a, it's an interesting line, like you were saying, the fence sitting analogy. It's like very tricky territory, because I guess what I'm like getting at is the fact that sometimes you don't like what you're going through in life, but that doesn't mean that it's incorrect for you to go through it. And people can think in their journey, oh, like something bad happened to me and I'm deconditioning, which means that I did something wrong in my deconditioning. And it's like that's not necessarily what it means.
Yeah. I have another tangent.
Yeah.
My mind's just like this way and that way, and let's do a loop-de-loop. So, liking things. I've been thinking about this. It's funny because like before we begin recording, we're like, wait, what are we going to talk about? And we just like think we know what we want to say, but then when we actually start talking, we can't control what comes out of us. But I was telling Sarah, like throughout the week, like I have conversations with myself about things I want to say, and then I forget everything. But hey, I remembered a thing, which is about liking stuff. So like Sarah's talking about it in the context of the 2644, but I'm thinking more about it in the context of other things in life, like are just natural preferences within the Maya. And I was thinking about it within the context of sacral centers, like people with their sacral centers defined. There's things that bring them satisfaction that they like using the body likes using its energy towards, and things that are incorrect. And, that can be things that one person might find interesting or things that another person might find completely stupid. Like something that Sarah and I talk a lot on the side is like vanity and beauty and like cosmetic stuff and like hair and skin and like girly things. And, if we're looking at it from like the human design philosophical perspective, it's like, why the hell are we investing energy into thinking about these things that don't matter? We're like all gonna die, you know? The point of this existence isn't necessarily for us to be obsessed with our physical bodies in such a way. And yet that's what the energy extends its life force towards. And yet, like, you have generators who do things, and like it is correct for their bodies to invest their energy into such things, whether it's like tinkering with cars or beauty or something that you might find completely stupid and idiotic. One man's trash is another man's sacral treasure.
Yeah.
And yet the mind is going to like look at that thing and come up with an opinion about it and dictate whether that thing is good or bad. And it's going to judge that person based on how they're using their energy towards whatever it is that they're doing. And like part of this also connects to the Christian stuff, the Judeo-Christian theme Sarah was saying. I went to church yesterday because it was Ash Wednesday, and I feel like religion, Sarah's now currently diving into the mystical way. Religion and religious belief isn't necessarily a mental choice. Like it happens to you. And I used to have, sorry, going all over the place. I used to have a spiritual mentor person, teacher. I followed her teachings. She didn't personally coach me, but I like did a group thing of hers. It's hard to define the context. Anyways, she was self-identified as a witch and was into like the new age mystical woo-woo stuff. Yet I recently saw that on Facebook, she had a come to Jesus moment, which is totally fine. Like I myself have had a come to Jesus moments when I was super religious and Catholic. And my body has since grown differently. I want to say grown out of, but I don't know if it's permanent. I don't know if body's ever going to return to that spiritual seeking of a religious dogmatic system to like have roots in. I don't know. Like I've had that experience and it was visceral. And like I couldn't not do it. It was my body choosing through invitation. Like it happened through an invitation for my body to go into that place and like have that sort of life experience. And then yeah, it fizzled out. Anyways, um, how did I get there? I'm watching this person on Facebook now have her come to Jesus moments. And it's just like, okay, like I'm not judging you, but that's like what your sacral energy is currently invested in. And that's totally fine if it's like, what is hot for you? What is satisfying for you? And so I think it's interesting just to watch our reality and to watch how we judge ourselves based on what we're doing and what we should be doing or not, because that's what it's all about. We think we should be studying human design. We think we should be doing this. And yet, like, I'm just watching myself read a bunch of romance novels. And that's just like what is floating my boat right now. And that's totally okay. And there's no judgment towards it. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's been like a very observational week for me in that sense.
I like that. Observational is good, and not to be like an anarchist about it, but not to be an anarchist like I want to do. But most people are still generators. Still, everybody, many people living. Not many people. Everybody living incorrectly. Like they're not. They aren't. They're maybe they have moments of correctness, and they have moments of lucidity in their minds where maybe their bodies are correct and their minds are able to access information, but it's still like by and large and not self plane. And so, it's almost like there's this whole movie and show going on. This is why Ra said before, and it's not Ra, there was, I don't know, whichever grandmaster said before enlightenment, it's the same thing as after enlightenment. I'm paraphrasing. But like you're going to deal with the same shit no matter what. The movie is the movie. Um and yeah, there's no reason, like you were saying, to put any type of moralistic judgments on it. Although I will be like I can't help but see when people are being incorrect and like when they're not being authentic, when
But
there's
that's
pretense.
innate. We're in the Maya, we're in the program. Like that's just the natural programming that's gonna happen. You can't turn it
And
off
what
unless you're
I
like,
know,
oh,
and
it's
I can't
different.
help that that's what I see,
Yeah.
and it's like, so it's just like, this is what I'm gonna see. I guess I'm gonna judge them. Part of being an anarchist um, doesn't mean that they're wrong. It just means that I'm gonna judge them. And my mind's vanity, is gonna continue doing its own little thing, and I hopefully won't be making any decisions from that place. But it's interesting that you brought up the 1949, and it's just funny that we're talking about Christianity and just like, that whole thing about the person having a come to Jesus moment and you having a come to Jesus moment. Because spirituality in general is very line two anyway. And so there's something interesting that I'm like realizing in rave cosmology is that there's this concept of godheads, and there's 16 different godheads, and these 16 different godheads come from an original fractal, which I'm not going to go all the way down the rabbit hole here, but basically they constitute every religious figurehead that we've ever had in the history of all of our gods and goddesses. It's like the original archetypes, if you will, for gods. Um, and there is something at the center of it, which Ra describes as the ring past not. Like we cannot go beyond it. We cannot see beyond it. There is something that has either created us or that is part of this consciousness waking up to itself situation. Like he describes it as a baby being, like, our process is part of a universe baby being born. And so there's something that's beyond us that we can't see and we're never going to be able to understand or see. And so that is where I guess you could say, like, I can't argue with religiousness, because there is an aspect, even one that Ra, I think, realizes, where we cannot see past it. So we can either accept that we can't see past it, or we don't accept that we can't see past it. But either way, we're never going to know what this kind of initiating source is. Um, and we've made it up. There's literally a pressure within us to make it up as to what it is, whether it's Jesus or Yahweh or Buddha or whoever it is. We've created it. And part of what's happening, the mystical way, which is what I've been talking about, and we've been talking about a little bit the 1949 too, is that this pressurizing gate, the 19, to really get us going on the mystical way, is going to be released basically into the ether. We're not going to have access to the pressure to go and seek or search this out. And so in a sense, like, God is dead. However, there is something like strangely spiritual about the concept that there's something out there that we can't conceive of and we can't see past into, that's larger than us, and that is, whether consciously or unconsciously, responsible for this entire experience that we're having. So, Jesus Christ. I go, Jesus Christ. Um,
Jesus and
this
all
is,
his 16 friends.
yeah, exactly. Jesus.
Well, 15 friends, if he counts, maybe he counts himself as his own friend.
Yeah, yeah, he says Jesus and all of his 16 friends. You know, it's like the one thing that I'm happy about with this pressure being, it's like all of the divisiveness over religion and the dogma and the sacrifice, right? Because the 1949 has a lot to do with sacrifice, the root going into the emotional center. The sacrifice of it all, like, it's absolute garbage. Like, it's we've made it up, the sacrifice. There's been a pressure on us to make it up in a sense, but it's also extremely primitive behavior, like sacrificing your son, or sacrificing an animal. All of the concepts of, like, if you sacrifice, then you're going to go to heaven, primitive. And so I have no problem with the pressure of that going away, because we can see out in the world how much, like, death is just happening on account of people having different religious perspectives, and this is my godhead, that's your godhead, and I don't agree with you, because, like, they can't exist, they can't coexist, which is part of the, I guess you could say, I don't want to say problem, but it's part of the reflection of the program breaking down for humanity generally. But yeah, just an interesting time to talk about that, because we had this activation of the 1949 for like the past week or so. I think it deactivated on like Wednesday or Tuesday, but we had it going for a while. And I realized, even though I'm an emotional person, that I really don't like that channel either, because it's, again, it's tribal. I don't tribal and me have a tainted relationship, I guess. And so and also just religion, because I was subjected to a lot of the dogma of Baptist religion without any of the lived experience of it, and for myself. And so I have like a big bee in my bonnet about religion without the physical individual experience, which is what the next 90 or so years is about. It's about finalizing the mystical process. It's about getting to the, going from all of these different mystical gates and channels into the individual having an experience of its own divinity. And so it's funny that, I mean, it makes sense. It's like I see how my life is, it's like it played out the way that it did, like in a very strange archetypal way, because of also what is, I guess, degrading around us in the form of religion, and the dogma of my religion is better than yours, for my God is better than yours kind of ideology.
Yeah, I feel like I need to give everyone who's new to this information a like pedantic first line foundation macro course. So
Thank
um
you.
uh, in 2027, the global cycles are changing. So due to the precession of the equinoxes, we have themes that are influencing the Maya on a global scale. Currently, and for the past 400 years or so, we've had the cross of planning, which is 3740, 9 and 16, and in 2027, February. So a few years down the line, that's gonna change. And we're gonna go, I think, into the cross of the sleeping phoenix. Part of the stuff that's coinciding with that cross changing is the mutation that is happening to gate 55, I believe, right? It's that gate, and
Yeah.
it's the
Histidine.
the emotional solar plexus is a motor center. It's not yet truly an awareness center. We have quote unquote three awareness centers, the spleen, the ajna, and the emotional solar plexus, but the emotional solar plexus doesn't have full capacity to be an awareness center. And then with that mutation, it's going to gain access to that self-awareness, which is going to give birth to the raves, which are going to be a different type of being. We're Homo sapien and transitus. There's going to be a new species of humankind that's going to begin being born at that time, which whether or not someone's being born is partly due to genetics and other stuff, which I won't get into. But those beings will be like not completely different, but like radically different from our own selves because of this different emotional solar plexus. Their emotional solar plexus is not going to be the same as ours. For them, they're not like eventually down the line, like with the mutation, 1949 is going to lose like the histidine amino acid is going to affect that channel. It's not going to be a channel anymore. It's going to kind of split from itself, and we're going to have 19 and 49, but the connection that is within them that makes them a channel like isn't going to be the same. Can't think of the detailed reason for that other than like the mutations happening sort of to histidine. But anyways, future humankind will have a different relationship to this. So future humankind, because we're still imprinted with like the current Homo sapien and transitus human design body graph, which is 1949 as a channel, and with the emotional solar plexus, that's a motor and not a awareness center. But as we progress into time, the mutations will take place and trickle into our reality. Our species is gonna slowly not die off. We're gonna live hand in hand with the raves, where they're gonna be dependent on us basically. So we're gonna live hand in hand. But according to cosmology, like there's an end date. Like there's like a 1300 more years of Earth, and then the asteroid it's gonna come and go boom, and then we won't exist anymore. And whether you want to believe that, like, it's up to you. It's rather catastrophic and morbid and really puts things into perspective of like, there is no point to anything because we're all going to die. Hence the previous questions of like, there's no reason to judge whether someone likes cars or beauty. Like, we're all going to die anyways. It's fine. Let's just enjoy our lives until we get to that point. But like, for us as humans, we're not going to live to be 1300 years old. So our perspective and like experience of what's going to happen is going to be limited. But then going back in time, we have these 16 godheads, and they were part of the seven-centered being. And since 1781, when we sort of became Homo sapien and transitus with projectors existing, those godheads lost their value. And they are crystal bundles that are physically rotating around the earth. They are a part of us, sort of because like our crystals come from these godhead bundles. And so we're imprinted with their just like quality of being a crystal, with their programming. Like that's where our personality crystal. Sorry, everyone. We've had some technical difficulties.
Yeah, sorry.
Anywho, we've had so many technical difficulties that we've had to re-record this second segment several times. So let's see if I could remember what I was saying.
The crystal bundles and us.
Yeah, so our personality crystals are coming from these crystal godhead bundles, which, and so our values as humans with personality crystals stem from these homogenizing values, which like it's hard to say that the godheads have values because they're not human, they're crystal bundles. But anyways, we have this connection to this seven-centered framework of it being, you have to believe in your godhead because it's going to help you survive and get to the afterlife and whatnot in whatever way. And so we have this quality of us stemming feel like I'm using the wrong words because I already said it the first time, and I can't remember how I said it the first time. We have all this stuff coming, stuff because I can't think of appropriate nouns, coming from the seven-centered world, and then we're here in the intransitus form with our makeshift temporary body graphs before eventually we'll have the awareness center active in the solar plexus, and then new humans are going to come, and eventually we're all going to die. So it's like trippy times to be human, to say the least. But I feel like this quality of like being the bridge between the seven centered and the proper nine centered, because we're like this intransitus Homo sapien, we're walking the fence, to use that analogy again, sitting on the fence between these two different Maya realities, these two ways of being homogenized. It really sets us off. I want to like say it like there's a frisbee analogy. I can't think of words anymore. My brain stopped being able to communicate. But we're in this weird place of limbo. And so
Yeah.
it's interesting to think about like religion in that sense, or to think about the homogenizing forces in that sense of it's, this bridge through time. Anyways,
Yeah.
sorry.
No,
Whoa.
I'm so glad. I love it when you do that shit. Like, I love it when I'm just like talking and then you're like, there's like 12 gaps in here for our listeners and we need to like give them a solid foundation. I
Yes,
think.
because they haven't listened to cosmology, so they don't know about anything.
Well, and I have
Yeah.
no capacity. Like, you, at least your line five mind can universalize things. I don't have that. Like, I'm just like, this is what's floating around in my head. I'm sorry, everyone, that you guys don't know what I'm talking about. But hopefully, Laura will help, kind of take the edge off that quality in me. But I feel very hopeful about it because it's really cool time to be alive, if that's the
I
case.
feel the opposite, but okay.
Well, maybe it's because my life has been so much suffering that I'm like, okay, like if I can just get my body, like, we're not here for sacrifice. Like, that's the whole seven centered. And also, just to say, um, like, your predisposition to being religious or not is genetic based on human design.
Yeah.
So, so if you want to, like, it's like you take your God and you realize that it's a genetic predisposition. It's a little bit of a different perspective. But like I said before, there is still a greater force than us and our universe out there that we're moving towards. I don't know what we can't conceive of it. It's
Yeah.
totally completely beyond us. But the thing that I like about it is, we're not here for sacrifice. And that's what the 1949 has really been all about, and what a lot of religions have been touting for the extent that they've been around. And I am just so glad that that's over, like, or that that's coming to an end, because again, very primitive behavior and a lot of guilt and shame and all of the not self stuff that we experience has come out of a belief that we're supposed to be sacrificing things. And, if we're not doing so, then we're not going to go to whatever our perceived version of heaven is. And it's like, well, actually, like, we can make our lives here super magical in every single breath and super meaningful, and we can move towards the potentiality of passenger consciousness, which is kind of what it's all been about, is this ability to perceive the life um, in that awareness in that kind of way. And that to me is really cool. And I think it's my own personal chemistry that makes me feel like it's cool. Like, it's not it's all been pre-written for me to feel that way about it, and Laura to feel the way that she does about it. But and you can choose to feel however you want about it. A lot of people aren't even going to be open to this because their reality can't hold or doesn't have the space or the capacity to hold this kind of perspective, and I don't blame them because it's fucking crazy. But it honestly, out of all of the things that I've learned from religion and all of the things that I've learned from science, this makes the most sense to me. Like, sorry, like it just does. And so that's why, even if it's not real, it's like the best game in town right now. Um, and so it's just fascinating to me. And my passenger, or at least my mind, is just going totally crazy over this information. And my body is kind of having a decompression because of all of the guilt and shame that have been programmed into it because of things like religion. So it's like I get to release a lot of the stuff that has been compressing me due to this information. And that's probably why I like it so much. Whereas people who weren't getting compressed may feel indifferent about it, right? Um, but in any case, like I was saying before, just the concept of not needing to sacrifice things. I mean, the concept too of like heaven isn't a place that we get to if we sacrifice enough on the material plane. It's like we can make our lives resistant free here in a sense. Maybe not completely resistance free, but we can minimize the resistance, so we're having a far more graceful experience of ourselves and what's happening here. And we're going to go back potentially, if this is all true, right? If it's all true, we're going to go back into our crystal bundle, hopefully, and we're not going to have any recollection of this. So it's all, it's all fascinating, and it's brand new, and it's like we're right here, and there's a lot of implications about it that I haven't really gotten into to be honest with you. But it just felt like, now that we're talking about the 1949 and I'm talking about the mystical way and religion and my anarchy of all of it anyway and all of that, I just felt like I'm talking about it. So hopefully you guys were able to understand, or somewhat understand, what it was that I was trying to get across, and that Laura helped kind of bridge the gaps where I was creating them. Oh goodness.
I mean, for you, like, it might be nice, but like, imagine how it is for the 1949s and the 3047s, for whom it is correct, human design wise, to believe in religion and to hold on to religious beliefs and to have that as groundwork for who they are in their reality. And then commutation, and that falls apart. Like, they're not going to be very happy. Again, here's like the whole like sacral analogy that like what's correct for someone might be incorrect for someone else, but you can't say that it's wrong just because you don't necessarily, it's not correct for you, and like it could still be correct for them. So I don't know. I think it's gonna be interesting. Well, we'll be old and we'll be dying, so we might not even get to see everything that happens. But yeah, we're just here to watch. But yeah, it puts things into perspective. Again, like the whole we're all gonna die. We're not even here. That's part of it too, is like there is an entity, the universe is being born. We're still in utero. Like the universe as we know it hasn't been born. We think it's been born, but the consciousness field, that is our reality. That is, I think, something that's going on like deep in the pineal gland of, if the future entity has a pineal gland, it's a cosmic universe. Like, can we even say that it has a humanoid body? This enormous thing that is going to be born. Some native cultures, I want to say Native American, but I don't know if it's American or Inuit or what, but they have been able to trace the umbilical cord that connects our planet to something far out in the cosmos. Like, they've related the stars to an umbilical cord before. It's like they understand that we are in utero, and like this thing hasn't been born, that will be born. But eventually, like, humans are gonna die because Earth is gonna die, perhaps. Not saying it's for sure, but according to the voice. And then eventually, like probably millions and billions of years, because time is but an instant of our little human lives. It's like a fleck of dust, microscopic dust. Eventually, something will be born, and we are just itty bitty cells in utero of this thing that it's eventually going to exist, and we can't even fathom it because we're just so deep in our own minds and obsessions and realities, and that's part of what it means to be here and now, to like have
Mhm.
self-reflected awareness and to understand what it means to be self-reflected conscious beings.
Yeah. What a crazy fucking trip, dude, if this is all real. You know what I mean though? Like crazy to think about. We're completely limited. And just to say for the 4037s and 1949s out there that may or may not listen to us,
I know you're just
um,
like, woohoo, we're gonna get rid of you.
no, 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 because it's the pressure's not going to go away when the raves are born. It's going to go away when the last of us pre 2027 die
Yeah,
out, basically.
yeah,
So we have plenty of time to work around with the religious stuff. And like I said, there is something beyond us. Like Laura said, there's something beyond us. And so it's not like religion, in a sense, has to go away. And there's also ways, right? Like the 4037 is also a love gate. So there's also ways where it can show up in community, in relationship. It's not like it's completely irrelevant because it's not where the program is going. Um, all of these things still are going to have deep meaning to the humans that are alive, for as long as this pressure is still alive for them. So I mean, in my head, and maybe this is a little bit of a nihilistic view, but like, I'm not going to be around for all of that stuff. Um, and I'm not going to be around for, well, at least this version of me, this body version of me, isn't going to be around for the rave portion, really, when it gets going, probably like fully going either. I'm here for this period of time in between, and I feel like there's an opportunity, for my personality crystal, my design crystal, to like have a good time being able to like also be a line one and know all of this stuff as we're going out. So I don't know how to say, like, none of it's that upsetting to me because I know that all of this stuff is still useful for those of us humans that are, humans in transitus that are still here while we're still here for each other, for the interconnectedness of each other and the potentiality of what that interconnectedness and that a possibility for communion, like real communion with another soul because of the capacity to access our passenger consciousness and really truly share our outer authority with another person is. Like, that's a crazy positive thing to me, that it feels so much more intimate than any other conception I've had of intimacy in all of my years of limerence and romantic obsession. Like, it's beyond it. So there's like this kind of romantic, idealistic way that I see it. Like, and you can call me crazy, but I don't mind that this is the way that I'm viewing the program. And maybe it's because I'm an emotional person. I don't know. But it's going to be filtered. This information is going to be filtered through your own limited perspective capacity. And this happens to be mine. And everyone's going to decide how they feel about it based on, or feel or sense or intuit about it based on their own limited capacity.
yeah. Heavy stuff.
Yeah. Heavy stuff is right. I know, I know. Not just talking about the cosmic baby being born. No big deal over here. Just your average Thursday, everybody. Um, Me and Laura came guns blazing today, I suppose. We're both like, we have no idea what we're gonna say. And then we were like, let's go for the religion. Just go straight for it. Don't we're not mincing words over here.
But also
And now
maybe
it's
that's
like,
just due to the transits of like that's what the cosmic weather is bringing us, and so we're going to
yeah.
reflect that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I thought it was funny. I was like, oh, the 3041 is also defined. And I've been thinking about the 3041 as someone who has it um, kind of a lot lately because there's this quality of the 3041. Someone who had the 3041 was Steve Jobs. Now, you can get into the fact that he died of pancreatic cancer, which is connected to the emotional solar plexus, which means that he probably was not following his authority um, at all, if any at all. He was split definition too, so there's all of that kind of jazz and drama to be talked about. But there's like a recognition, I feel like emotional recognition of what's valuable that comes with this channel. And it has its levels, because it's not like I'm just, my conditioned self really has ever known truly what's valuable. But there is an awareness that I feel like I have, and I want to share around this kind of recognition. Um, which, it's funny, we go from the 1949 to being defined in Aquarius season to the 3041. And it makes me also wonder, like, how is it that Aquarius has all of these emotional gates?
Well, it's mostly Pisces.
It is. Well, no, 3041 is both Aquarius and
Yeah,
then night.
but the rest of Pisces, like all of Pisces, you can only have so many gates in the center. Like all of Pisces is actually no, not all of it. We have 64 or 63, whichever one, 63. But most of Pisces is in the solar plexus, and so like the neighboring gates, which are Aquarius, are also there.
No, well, for sure, true. But it's also just like, you don't really think of Aquarius. Like, you think of Pisces being emotional, sure. You don't really think of Aquarius as being that emotional. However, I think the futuristic quality of it does have something to do with the solar plexus. Um,
Yeah,
I don't know. That's a
with
whole nother,
raves.
yeah, that's a whole other conversation. like I was just thinking about that too. I'm like, I've been, part of what Laura was talking about before is like this histidine amino acid having this kind of, I don't know if it's shutting off, or this quality of mutating, or this quality of not being available, whatever it is, it's affecting gate 49, which is part of the emotional center, and gate 55, which is also part of the emotional center, and they both are related to histidine. So it's histidine that's really causing whatever it is to happen, supposedly. And I may not really understand that fully and just be talking out of my ass here, but that's kind of what I gleaned from the information I got. And I've been starting to like think into what it's actually like to have an emotional awareness that doesn't act on a wave. And, you know, I'm starting to realize, or, I'm starting to hypothesize, would be a better way to frame it, the fact that it has to do, because I do have an emotional definition that does work on a wave, is that it is this knowing about essentially authenticity, like this inherent understanding that's beyond logic about what is true and what's not true, when it comes to human behavior. Um, and this kind of extreme allergy to pretense, and this extreme allergy to hypocrisy, and this extreme allergy to, like, basically, whenever you accuse somebody of doing something one way, and then they give you an excuse out of their mouth and mind as to why you did it, but you know that their true intention was what you sensed, even though they're able to explain their way out of it, and in a sense gaslighting you. Um, that I feel like is going to be a thing of the past when the emotional solar plexus comes online without a wave. I think there's just going to be a knowing without um, the need for logic, and without the extremes of emotionality to kind of be the scapegoat for this type of insight. So it's like, I have an insight about a human behavior, but because I don't have any logic supporting it, or I don't have any proof supporting it, somebody else could just argue themselves out of what I sensed. So I sense that you are coming at me for a specific reason, and then you tell me that's not the reason that it was. But I know that it was, but I can't prove that it was. And my emotionality will ratchet up or ratchet down, and then everyone's like, "Oh, she's just being emotional." And then the emotional person takes it upon themselves that there's something wrong or that they're just being emotional or whatever. Meanwhile, their intuition may have been correct. They just weren't able to express it in a way that felt non unbiased and believe it within themselves. And so I get the sense that this emotional awareness without a wave is just going to be like that knowing without any of the ratcheting. And and that is very Aquarius. You know, it's like it's not there's not going to be an emotionality to it, right? It's just going to be like I know this shit and I don't care what you say because I can sense that that's inauthentic or it's hypocrisy or it's pretense or whatever the thing is. So, yeah, there's my 2 cents about the mutation, the emotional solar plexus mutation.
I think it makes sense when we look at tone and we look at the tones that are associated with the solar plexus binary touch and sensing, comparing to the spleen, which is more about intuition and instinct for survival with taste and smell. Like you eat something or smell something because you're going to take it into your body and you want to know if it's safe for you or not. Whereas sensing and touch, it's much more interconnected. I have sensing and it's like about reading energy. It's like pick up and up
Yeah.
on vibes, and touch is just like very tangibly picking up on vibes rather than just through the ethers. And so yeah, that makes sense that like we'll just have that knowing like everyone's gonna be more psychic, maybe or not.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Well, yeah, I think it's gonna be like beyond psychicness. Like I think that's why raves are gonna come off as being like very well, this is what Ross said. It's like very they're gonna look like they're maybe like there's something wrong with them, but they're just gonna like they'll just know. Like they're just gonna they're gonna know and they're not gonna be able to explain themselves because trying to talk to somebody who's been living their life in a pretense or in a facade, it just leads to more bullshit words. And so
Well,
they're just going to
I
go
think it's
ahead.
been said that raves are going to be nonverbal, so it's
Yeah.
telepathic communication. It's not even out loud.
Right. Well, and it's like there's a reason to like I feel like everything it's like there's a the words can only do so much anyway where we're at. And so, we can explain our outer authority with words, but when it comes to actually getting to the bottom of information about human energy, like people can make shit up all day with their mouth that's not true in their body.
Because we're
And
avoiding confrontation and truth, Sarah.
well, and I mean all of the other reasons, all of the other conditioned reasons. And so, yeah, I mean, I feel like it's so funny. Part of me is like, damn, I'm excited about all of this and I probably shouldn't be. But yeah, I mean, I feel like it's going to be a more honest, like we're going to be around people who maybe we can't communicate with verbally, but are going to be way more honest than we are. Um, so yeah, that's that about about the potential. And I mean, again, like we're waiting to see what happens in 2027. I'm like literally over here. Ra keeps saying the door is closing in 2027. And in a sense, it is. The program's switching. There's going to be less pressure. But like, we're still going to be human with all of the human activations that we have until, again, basically the beginning of 2100. Is that what it is? Yeah. So we're going to still have all of this stuff going on and our own values and things like that past 2027. But there is going to be a shift and there is going to be potentially new beings born. And I am so interested to see what happens.
As a projector, maybe for the generators, I feel like for them to like participate in it. But I feel like as projectors and like all non-energy beings, I feel like it'll really come to show whether or not non-sacral beings have the capacity to reproduce and care for extremely dependent beings on them. I don't know. Again, I'm not excited to see. I'm just like, I don't want to deal with the stress. I can perceive that it's gonna be stressful for everyone, and I'm not here for it. But
You're like, I can already sense my open root, can already feel the pressure starting
yeah.
to mount. Yeah. I know everybody's going to experience it differently, everyone's going to experience it differently. So it is what it is. And it's funny too, because I also got into the weeds about like Richard Rudd and human design and all of this stuff because Richard Rudd just was featured on Rick Rubin's podcast, who Rick Rubin is like a multi Grammy award winning producer. I mean, he's worked with like the biggest named artists of our time. And so having someone like Richard Rudd, who was a student of Ra initially, or at least, for many years, on something like that, just it, like adds more legitimacy to these types of things in the collective zeitgeist, um, which I tend to like. But, you have to understand, Richard Rudd looks at it completely differently than Ra does. And it's just an interesting thing, perspective in general, because the way that Ra describes some things can be like harrowing to listen to. Like literally the hairs on your arms can stand up when you're listening to this man talk sometimes, because it's so
Shocking
um
with his 2551.
well, that, and also you can just sense that this dude was like mutated by something um greater than him. I mean, you can see it in his eyes when you're on videos. And then Richard Rudd, who's like this sweet, poetic, gentle man coming in and talking about it, who has a different take, it's like far more calming on the nervous
Yeah.
system to hear it from him than to hear it from Ra. And it's not for me to say what perspective is right. It's just for me to be aware of the fact that our perspective, that we can only perceive things through that lens. Like I am not never going to be able to see things through Ra's eyes. He had a defined ego, spleen, and no emotional definition. And I mean, Richard Rudd has a defined sacral center and he's an open throat. I mean, there's things, right? Open G center. There's things that are just going to change the way that the perspective on what's happening and the change is working. But one thing, even though 2027, 2027 this, 2027 that, it's like this stuff is already happening right now. The breakdown of everything is already underway. The breakdown of, when I say everything, I mean the 4037, the cross of planning, is already underway. It's like we're in it. It's not like a big bomb is going to go off in February 2027. This is like a slow disintegration that's kind of happening with the cross of planning. So, um, yeah, I mean,
I know we should wind down, but I'm just like, there's so many things to say. I just want to say quickly, I feel like something that gets neglected in the talk about the cross of planning changing is the 916. Not because I have
okay.
it, but because like it's logical. It is rooted in the collective improving patterns so that society can have plumbing and electricity and internet. Like that's all 916. And so like the 3740 is more like I'm gonna scratch your back and you scratch mine. I'm gonna work for you. You're gonna give me money. You're gonna give me benefits, and I'm gonna be a good employee, and we're all gonna get along. Or like family dynamics. We're all happy together because we're all like in pitching our role into the family dynamic. But like the collective, like internet. Raw, I think, has said that there won't be any more internet, and that's why we're gonna rely on the right-minded beings who have accrued everything while the internet was alive, so that when a left-minded person needs information, they're going to have to go to a right-minded person. Like, I don't know if the internet's going to die, but like
In our lifetime.
the innovations we have during this time will probably pitter patter out.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and I don't know when the internet is, like, it's like, how long is all of this stuff going to take? Is it going to happen in our lifetime? That we're gonna see like this technological absolute peak, and then absolute, he talks about things like the um population crash, and then the absolute just like loss of all of these technologies that we've come to depend upon, like in our lifetime, in the same lifetime. I don't know, I don't know how all of that, the timing of that, how all of that's going to work out. um I really, yeah, I have no, and it's a scary, it is a scary thought to think, oh, like we're not going to have this. But this is why I love Laura, everybody, because she's just like We neglect the 916, and you're absolutely right. We fucking do. We do.
Because everyone's
And
so concerned about the tribalism. But yeah, it's like there's 4 gates. It's not just 2 gates.
I know, it's so true. I mean, I didn't even think about that, but you're absolutely right. I mean, it's everyone's concerned, yeah, the tribalism and the kind of ability to work together, even like if you're doing stuff that you don't particularly like, so that you're doing it for the greater kind of tribal good. um but you're totally right about the 916, and that's something that I'm going to chew on now more and more as I think about the things that are breaking down. Because one thing that's very clear to me is that there is like such an insane ramp up of our technological expertise that has happened as we're reaching this 2027. And what I actually think 2027 is going to be is like this peak of technological advancement. And then I think it's not like that's it. We're gonna hit that, and it's not gonna go any further. And if it all happens quickly or slowly, it deteriorates, how it works out, I have no concept or clue. But I think it is gonna be generational in a lot of ways. So I think there's gonna be some generational component to it. Um, so yeah, I mean, it's a fascinating thing to think about how that's going to work, with this new, basically with the program changing its
Flavor.
direction. What'd you say?
It's flavor.
Yeah, with the program changing its flavor, like how does the blueberry fade out when the grape is coming? I don't know. No idea. But is there anything? I mean, look, I know that this is
No,
like
I'm not gonna say nope. Nothing
I
else
know
to
that
add
this is
here.
some like seriously deep shit that we're talking about, you guys. Like, this is a lot. This is a lot for any one mind to have to process. And me and Laura both have defined ajnas and throats. Laura has defined head, thank God. At least one of us does. And so I know this is a lot to process, and I want you to understand it's not always going to be like this. Sometimes it will, though, when we're talking. Because, of course, like, I'm not we're not here to like linearly teach things from a structured framework. We have right minds. So what's going to come out is always going to be the things that are just going to come out. And so thank you for sticking around with us if it's been correct for you to do so.
If you
Um,
like us enough, feel free to subscribe. Keep
Feel
on
free to
listening.
subscribe. Feel free to reach out if you need resources
Well,
or
not
want to
to
like
Sarah,
talk.
because Sarah's gonna be like, "Who are you? Why are you harassing me?"
No, first of all, that's not true. I literally said to the person that reached out, like, I was not, okay. I was not recognized by this person. They did not listen to my podcast. They did not look at my profile. They were just like, homogenized projector. This is for me. And I'm like, no. Like, again, projectors are so, everyone is so different and unique. But beyond that, if you listen to the podcast and you are curious about things, and I can sense that you've been engaged in what we're talking about, of course I want to talk to you.
But just make that clear.
Yeah, just say like, oh, like I liked whatever, so and so. Um, like the ulterior motive thing is my problem, because the other thing about this person, they were trying to pull me into some workshop that was happening, and I'm like, I'm not here for it. So, I'm allergic to like salesy stuff. I just want to hear about your own experience and of listening to what we're talking about and all of that. So, Laura's joking. She's joking. She's serious because she knows that I can be the way that I am. But as far as our listeners go, like, appreciate you guys. Grateful that there's people who are listening along to us talking, because um, this is like everything that we talk about is a lot. Laura's probably like, she probably knows or studied as much as like top 2% of people in human design that know about human design have gotten into. I would probably consider myself among the top 5%. So it's like we're talking about deep concepts in human design. This is not your pop HD podcast. So it is going to be deep sometimes. So again, grateful, thankful, interested to hear other people's perspectives and questions. Laura?
Catch us on the flip side.
Catch us on the flip side.
Okay, co-signer has
Um,
had enough, okay?
we've had enough. Okay. All right. Take care.
Bye, everyone.